G'day there, Chris from the Headache and Pain Management Centre, and today we're talking about a case study, a really interesting patient that came through the clinic. And this patient actually lived with a low grade of hormonal headaches, so would get the headaches once every couple of months during the menstrual cycle, and then things got really much worse after she had a car accident, and this lady was in her 40s. So today we'll be sharing some information about that and also what it means when looking for triggers with headache and migraine. So let me just set the scene for you. So this patient came in, this is a number of years ago now, but it came to mind while I was looking at the cars on Stanley Street outside to talk to you today about this one. And this lady had hormonal headaches once every 3 or 4 months. So it would come on, she'd have a couple of Panadol and things would be much better. It was a very low grade headache that she'd get. It wasn't really affecting her everyday life, and that was pretty much what was going on. She presented to the clinic a couple of years ago complaining of these headaches which had now turned into migraines that were happening once a month. They'd last for 3 days at a time, and Panadol, Nurofen and all these sorts of things were no longer helping, and she was really at her wit's end trying to figure out what was going on. After we took a bit of a history, what we realised is that she'd had a low-grade car accident about 18 months prior, and the onset of these migraines came on a month or two afterwards. So this car accident wasn't a really big one. She was at a traffic light, hit from behind at maybe 30 k's an hour, so it wasn't the worst car accident been around, but it was enough to actually start the process off. But what she was saying is that it was still only coming on, these migraines, at around her menstrual cycle. Long story short, we had a look at her neck, and after we treated the neck, the menstrual migraines and hormonal migraines went back to baseline, back to only having one every 5 or 6 months, which could be sorted out with headache tablets and painkillers once again. So what was actually happening? One thing to know about headache and migraine is that it's never just the one thing that triggers the headaches or migraines, okay? It's actually more like having a cup arrangement where if you overflow the cup, it means you've got a headache or a migraine. The more water that's on the table when the cup overflows, the worse the headache or migraine might be. And so if we have a think of what was going on in this lady's situation, is that her baseline, her cup was relatively empty, okay? And once every 3 or 4 months, it was like having a piston at the bottom of the glass that pushes the water up when the menstrual cycle ends and begins, okay? And this happens with every lady that is of reproductive age, I guess. So what happens is that at that time of the month, the piston pushes the water up, it pushes the water a bit higher, and if there's a few things going on around the place, if there's extra stress, extra fatigue, all the sorts of things that would give a regular person a headache or migraine, it's almost like the end of the cycle pushes the water up and over. Now, if it was relatively minor, a couple of drops on the table, you take a Panadol or Nurofen and things get better and everything's fine once again. But what happened with this lady is that when she had her car accident, when we assessed her neck, she'd actually sustained a whiplash injury. Okay, so her neck muscles and her joints had become stiff and tight. And what it was doing is it was sending sort of low-grade signal from her neck up into her headache part of her brain, all right? And as a result, what had happened is its cup over time, over the next couple of months, had filled the cup up to a certain point where pushing the piston at the end of the month would actually overflow the glass and put a lot more water onto the table than it normally would. So much water, in fact, that it wouldn't actually change much when she was taking her headache tablets, her Panadol, her Nurofen, and she was doing all of the different investigations with her doctor and even tried other migraine medications as well. So I guess the long story short is that when we're talking about headaches and migraines, when we're looking at different triggers, whether it be the hormones, whether it be food triggers, whether it be a whiplash or after a car accident, it's really important to consider all of the different things that might contribute to your headache pattern, because quite often what we find, as we saw with this lady, is it's actually a compounding like this in the cup that actually causes them to happen, rather than just the one thing. So if you're a little bit confused about your triggers, if it's not really consistent, if sometimes you can have a couple of glasses of wine and you're totally fine, and other days you can have a teeny tiny sip and you've got a headache for 3 days, then what we need to look at is the biggest thing that is filling up your cup at any point in time. And for the most part, when we're seeing people here in the clinic, when they've tried everything else, their scans are clear, they've done their food diaries, is that it's the neck that is filling up that cup the most. And when you take the signal out of the neck, what happens is that cup empties and you can go back to doing the things that weren't normally causing the headaches previously. So for this lady in particular, we sorted out her neck and she went back to her baseline, getting a teeny tiny headache once every few months, which was able to be sorted out with Panadol from there. So looking at all of the different factors, filling up the cup is the way to do things. Hey, I hope that's been helpful. If there's any questions, if anything's resonated with you, please type in the comments below and ask your questions. More than happy to help out. You can start a private message as well. Taylor's there at all hours sort of answering those as well. So hopefully you've got something out of that. Please like, share, comment, and we'll see you again next time for our next Facebook Live video. Cheers and bye for now.